Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story to share or have comments about the podcast? Love to hear from you. Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. This is BJ Odom. You know, the guy that has more parts than a chicken nugget? It's my new memoir. It's an unbelievable true story of me from baby to adult. I think you'll enjoy it, and you can get it now. More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, available on Amazon. As we welcome you to episode 108. At 15 years old, Andrea McConaughy learned something was wrong with her heart. Years later, she would hear the words no one ever expects. She might need a transplant. What followed was a battle, including 150 days in the hospital and life on an early LVAD machine, the size of a washing machine. But today, Andrea is celebrating something incredible. 30 years of life after her heart transplant. This is a story of faith, resilience, and ultimately, the gift of life. We'll meet Andrea coming in next. First of all, Andrea, congratulations on 30 years surviving with a heart transplant. Myself, I have 23 years, so congratulations to you. As we get things started, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself first?
Sure. So I am 55 years old, and I'll be celebrating my 30th heart transplant anniversary this year, so I'm pretty excited. I am at home with my husband, who just retired in September, and so we have all kinds of travel plans coming up. And I have a son who goes to a college nearby, so we get to hang out with him and see him usually once to 2 times a week. And other than that, I teach cookie decorating classes at our local foodie school that I love doing. It gets me out of the house and I get to have some fun. So I used to have a cookie business and I retired from that in January because my husband retired, so I didn't think that was fair. But then I got called by, the owner of the foodie school, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to come out and teach some classes?" I was like, "Yeah, that would be great." So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So 30 years, huh?
Yeah, 30 years. Yes, in August. I'm very excited.
And I thought I was, doing good at 23. So that means I got at least 7 more years in me.
I think a year is good. Nonetheless, 30 years.
Yeah, no kidding. Congratulations to you on that.
Yeah,
well,
thank you.
As I always tell everyone that I talk to, every story has a beginning. And thank God, neither you nor I have our ending written yet. So that's amazing. Mm-hmm. But let's just start from the beginning. Where did it all begin for you as far as the transplant world?
So it all began when I was 15 years old, so quite a few years ago. I was in high school and I was walking up the steps to go to some of my classes, and I kept getting really short of breath. So I came home, told my mom, because I don't think I was as involved in sports as I was when I was like 11, 12, like 13. So I came home, told my mom, and she said, "Well, why don't we just go get it checked out?" So I went to my regular doctor, and nothing showed up. And a few weeks after that, I still had the same symptoms, but I started getting red like spots on my arm. So my mom thought I had some kind of rash or something. And my doctor, I couldn't get in with my doctor. So she took me to a local clinic. And the guy said that I was just having like a reaction to maybe some kind of food. But he also did a checkup and he said, but I'm noticing a heart murmur. Has your doctor ever told you that? And my mom's like, no. And he said, well, here's the name of a cardiologist. Why don't you just go get your daughter checked out? So we got in within that month. And that doctor, that was when we lived in Illinois. I think he listened to me maybe for 3 minutes and said, I think your daughter has something called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And as my parents were very shocked, and he said, this is, pretty unique for a 15-year-old. So I'd like to have her go to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota and get like a full workup. So they did that, and they came up with the same diagnosis. And that doctor at that time told myself and my parents that at some point in my life, I would probably end up with a heart transplant. But being the invincible teenager that I was, I was like, whatever, I'll deal with, what's going on right now. So they just put me on one pill, and it was so long ago, I can't even remember the name of it, but it was just to make the heart beat easier. And I lived with that until I was 24 years old. I graduated high school. I went through college. I started living on my own. I was actually in Ohio. I was working at an HR consulting firm, and that's when the big journey started, where I was getting into where I was going to end up with a heart transplant.
When they told you that now is the time, was that like when you were in college, and how did that feel?
Yeah, so I had just graduated college, and I got a job in Ohio. It was a labor and employee relations consulting firm. I loved human resources, and I got up to go to work. And I was living out there by myself in an apartment. I got up to go to work, and my arm dropped over the bathtub. And I always tell people that I believe in angels, because somehow I got from my bathroom to my bedroom, and I didn't call 911. I called my parents. And when my dad answered the phone, which was really weird because my dad was usually at work by this point, my dad answered the phone, and my speech was slurring. It was like incoherent. And he thought I was his mother because my grandmother had had a stroke the year before that. And my brain was like, what? He's like, Mom? And I'm like, huh? Like that. He's like, oh my God, Andrea? And I was like, yes, like that. And he's like, oh my God, call 911. No, we'll call 911. So he called 911. They came to my apartment. They had to get the owner of the building to get in because my door wasn't open. And when they came into my apartment, I was laying on my bed and I couldn't move. So they brought me into the ambulance, and 5 minutes into the ambulance ride, my feeling came back. And I said, thank you so much. But you can take me back home. I need to go to work today. And oh, okay, honey, that's okay. Why don't we just take you to the hospital, make sure you get checked out, and make sure everything's okay. So I was like, oh my God, I was mortified that I had to call my boss and tell him I wasn't coming in that day. But that's, So, but anyway, my doctor was in Pittsburgh because that's where I had, been being seen, other than just moving to Ohio. I would come back for my appointments. So they called my cardiologist in Pittsburgh, and they had me life flighted back from Ohio to Pittsburgh. And that's when they saw that my heart was starting to deteriorate. And that was June of 1995. So I was a month out from turning 25. And from there on out, I just started going downhill. my fluid was building up, or my lungs were filling up with fluid. The heart was deteriorating. So I made a decision to move back in with my parents who were in Pittsburgh. And I was in and out of the hospital for a good year. They put me on the transplant list. So, of course, I had to have all that testing done. And but I think I was going to UPMC, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, for all of this. And yeah, during that year, I was probably on every single floor, between going to like the ER, going to visits, or ending up in the hospital because of just, different symptoms. So that was the start of everything that was happening to me.
So then how long was it after you were, going through all this that you actually got your transplant?
So, February of 96, I was at home, and they probably had me on about 30 different medications. So I could barely sit up. I wasn't sleeping, and not to be gross, but I was throwing up and every which way coming out. And I didn't think I was going to make it another night. So I called my doctor and I said, if you don't do something, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning. You just know. And he said, why don't you meet me in the ER? And so my mom took me to the ER, and that was February of 96. And I didn't leave until my transplant in August of 96.
Oh, wow. February to August then. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in for 156 days, so almost 6 months. And when I got in there, my ejection fracture number was down to, I think, 7. And they actually brought in a priest to give me last rites. I scared the bejeebies out of my parents. And
I think that would have scared the bejeebies out of me if I was getting my last rites.
I was so out of it. I just wanted someone to help me feel better. I didn't even really get what was going on at that point, just because of how ill I was. And so they tried, of course, IVs, and nothing was helping. And so Dr. Kormos, who ended up to be my transplant doctor, said that I was going to be given a 50-50 shot, and that they had a machine called an LVAD, which is a left ventricular assist device.
Okay.
And even with that device, they were giving me a 50-50 shot, but that was his recommendation at that point. So my parents are like, do it.
Now, was this back in the day where the machine was huge and it was beside your bed, or was this the one that you could actually walk around and move around with?
So it was the 400-pound washing machine size.
Okay.
And the tubes were connected to the aorta of my heart. And the only way I could move is if I had a biomedical engineer with me. And there was no going home at that point. They were actually just starting to talk about what it would be like to make this smaller. And I didn't want to be the guinea pig of that. So I begged them to just leave me and let me be, and let me, stay in the hospital, for the heart, for the new heart. So,
yeah, because we have we have some faithful listeners now that are on those, and they, are waiting for their transplants, but they carry them around. And the one gentleman that I talked to, every now and again, he likes to fish, so he still goes fishing and everything. He says, he's very careful that, his batteries or whatever doesn't fall in the water, but he's living, not a normal life, but a somewhat, I don't even want to say somewhat, but he's
living.
Yeah, he's living still, but waiting for that transplant.
I am amazed at the medical technology and what they have done since I have had my transplant. I am just flabbergasted at the advances that they've made. So, Yeah. Yeah. But right after my LVAD, they have you in your CTICU, and I didn't feel well. I thought I was like having a heart attack. I'd never felt this before in my heart. And it turned out I had a blood clot. So they had to go in and open me up again and get the blood clot, out. And so once I had that done, they brought me, back. And then I finally got to move up to the upper floor where I was waiting, for the transplant. And as time went on, I started feeling better and better because the LVAD was making me feel normal, like as not normal as I was at that point. It made me feel like, the blood was pumping the way it was supposed to because of the machine. And so, the biomedical engineers were pretty much with me 24/7, and they would take me on walks. If I had a test to go to, they didn't have to bring it to my room. I could go to the area in the hospital where, I could get the testing done. So I was feeling, they actually started me on a treadmill. So I would go and exercise at least 3 times a week, where I would get to walk on the treadmill, because just laying in the bed, your muscles don't do so well. So they wanted me as healthy as possible once I was going to get the transplant, so that I could do better post-transplant.
So how many days were you actually on the LVAD machine?
I was probably on that, so probably 150, because
wow.
Once I went in the hospital, they did it right away. So, yeah. But I had all kinds of cool experiences, BJ, while I was on the LVAD. Would you like to hear some of them?
Oh, yeah. This is your story, young lady. So, yeah, let's hear them.
So, you have all kinds of nurses, doctors, and you have your favorites and your non-favorites. And so the routine was my dad would drop my mom off at the hospital at 7:00 every day. And so she would be with me every single day. And then my dad would come from work around 3 to 4 in the afternoon, and they would stay until 7 and then repeat, the next day. So there was one time my parents got invited, and sports are a big thing in Pittsburgh. So they got invited to go to a hockey game, the Pittsburgh Penguins. And so I was watching the game from my room, and one of my not so favorite nurses came in, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm watching the game." She's like, "Well, why aren't you there?" And I'm like, that's not funny, Margaret. Why would you even say that? And she's like, "I'm not kidding." She said, "With the engineers and, everything going on in the hospital, you should see if they can get you to a game." And I was like, yeah, whatever. So my parents came in the next day, the engineers were there, and I said, "I want to go to a game." And they're like, "Okay." And so it ended up happening. I was the first person to leave a hospital on an LVAD machine of this size. And my parents got tickets. The engineers built a ramp for this machine. And the engineers, 2 of the engineers came with me to the game. One of my doctors was at the game with me. Another doctor was actually at the game in the audience. And then the ambulance donated their time. And so they were there waiting in case a transplant became available, so that they could put me right in the ambulance back to the hospital, which of course didn't happen. But so
that would have been quite the ordeal if it did, like right in the middle of the game.
Absolutely.
And it's tied up and you're going, "What? Now we have to leave? What? To get a transplant? Can't you see how?"
Yep. But I did get a hot dog and a beer, so that was pretty exciting. And because I hadn't had real food, in 3 months, I'd been waiting that long at that point. And I was all smiles when I came back in the hospital, and they're like, "What else can we do for you?" And I said, "I want to take a shower," because there was no shower with the big machine.
Oh, yeah.
And then they figured out how to do that. They taped me all up. So I don't know if I was the first person ever on an LVAD, but I was at the hospital. And so I went in, and I think I took about a 40-minute shower. And I just let the water, pour on me. And so I got to do that. I celebrated my birthday while I was in the hospital, my 26th birthday, and they let my mom have a room. So she cooked my favorite lasagna. I got to have a nice little party. I had family and friends come in. 4th of July happened while I was in the hospital. So they took me to a room where I could watch fireworks go off. They would send me to different patients' rooms because I was a pretty positive person. I tried to see the positive in every day. I did have my down days, but I had pretty positive days. So when someone was having a harder day, they would ask if I would go talk to that person, and so I did. I had 3 dry runs while waiting in the hospital. So the first 2, of course, didn't work, where they would come in and tell you there was a possible heart, but then it didn't work out either because of, I think, a disease with the donor, or I can't remember why the second one didn't happen. But the third one, which was my heart, I was down exercising, and there was another young lady who was younger than me. She was, I think, 18 years old. And they came into the room and told her that there was a heart available. And I got pretty emotional because she had been there a lot less than me. And I knew that we were the same blood type, and which they don't encourage you to talk about with other patients because of that reason. Mm-hmm. So I went back to my room. And you don't get a lot of privacy while you're waiting. But I went back to my room. I went in my bathroom and I just started crying. And I came out when I was ready. And I swear to you, 3 hours later, they came in and they said, "Andrea, there's a possible heart for you." And I said, no, that's for the other young lady. And they said, "No, there's another heart." And I said, "Well, I don't believe it. I'm not going to even call my dad because the first 2 were dry runs. So I don't want to get my dad all, excited and have it not happen." So of course my mom called my dad and said, "Get over here right now. She might have a heart." And so normally, they put you on the gurney. They, bring you down to the OR. Well, I said, I won't go down until I talk to my brother. I said, Dr. Kormos has to do the heart transplant. I was very demanding. And, he happened to be there, which if he wasn't, I'm sure I would have done it anyway. But I was very happy that Dr. Kormos, who I'd become, very close, like patient doctor wise, I felt very comfortable, like I trusted him. But anyway, so he did my transplant along with Dr. Pham, and they let me go down in a wheelchair. So all the families and patients, they stood at their doors. Everybody gave me high fives. They were clapping because I think everybody knew how long I'd been waiting at this point. And Father Mike, who had come in my room every day and did a prayer with me, he called me the brat, and I called him the rat because when I would come in and take my candy, and he called me a brat because sometimes I just wasn't in a very good mood. But he was always there for me. Same with Sister Mary Kay. So I got to go down. I talked to my brother, and then I got my heart transplant on August 21st in 1996.
Awesome. Now I do need to ask you one question. I had this on my mind, but I wanted you to finish your story. Because when I was a sickly little boy, I went to a Harlem Globetrotters game. And of course, I wasn't on an LVAD machine, but somebody had arranged where, a lot of the players came out and autographed a poster and said hi to me. And, I thought that was like the greatest day, in my life at the moment. Now, did any of the players get a chance to meet you? Because somebody in the PR department had to know that was going on.
So I was interviewed by the news. So I was on the news. And, I think I was just so excited to be at a game. I hadn't even thought of that. And I don't know if their PR didn't know that I was there or what? That's a great question. But the next day, when the head of the biomedical team came in, he had a shirt signed for me from Mario Lemieux.
Oh, cool. I bet you still have that.
I still have that. I never got to meet him, which I wish I would have. And I guess I don't know why I didn't think, why can't I meet him? But yeah, so I do have that. I treasure it. I have it framed, and I'm very lucky to have that. So yeah, I'm actually, because it's my 30th year this year, and I have been, and I still am, and I always will be. I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And my husband and I go back probably every other year to a home game. And last year we actually flew to Ireland to go see them play.
Oh, wow.
And so I have been nonstop trying to find connections to see if I could meet any of the players. I really wanted to meet Coach Tomlin, but he retired. But I have done everything to try to meet someone, because I'd really like to do something special for my 30th.
Okay, I tell you what, I've been in radio for a long time, and so I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you a little hint here what to do. Okay, I'm going to give you a bit of information. When you're getting don't even do that. Call them now. Tell them what you did. Tell them your story, about you came there, was one of the first people with this big LVAD machine that came to a game. And this is your 30th anniversary. You and your husband want to come to another game. Is there any way that you could meet some players, or, could you get some special seats and ask for the PR department? They're the people that'll make it happen.
Well, I did. And after like the 5th phone call, I finally got a hold of someone. And what they said was that the players do not meet people before or after the games. But she said that I could possibly come to when they have their preseason workouts. Preseason. Yeah. Or not the preseason. They where they go to oh my goodness, I can't think of it's where they go when they're practicing before the season even starts.
Yeah, preseason. They like the camp, preseason camp.
Thank you. Yes. And that we could possibly arrange a date for me to come out and meet some of the players at their camp.
Cool. See,
so
you'll make it happen.
I'm hoping that's like my number one goal. But anyway, so that's what I'm trying to do, because I'm such a huge Steelers fan, and that's the one thing I would love to have. Oh,
you're the Steelers then. Okay, you want to go to a Steelers game?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, see now, now you still need to call the Penguins and then talk to the PR person and tell them you want to come to one of their games for your 30th anniversary too.
That would be a great idea.
See, they might. I'm just saying might. They might even throw in a couple tickets for you,
That's true. Yeah, they already have the footage of when I was waiting. So why not, right?
You always get a hold of the PR department.
Yeah. Okay. Not a bad idea, BJ.
Well, now you're finished with the transplant, and you had some. I know it's not easy, because I've been there. I had lots of things go on between me being 22 months old and my transplants. But how do you feel now? How is life going after all that you went through?
So right after the transplant, I actually had a teeny bit of trouble where my body was rejecting the organ. So for about 4 months, they had to do something called plasmapheresis.
I've had that.
Yeah. So, it teaches like the organ the body not to reject the new organ. So, but I've been very blessed. I have not ever had any rejection. But my biggest obstacles have been precancer cells, and I probably had 5 different surgeries for precancer. But they've been able to, nip it in the bud every single time that they found it. And other than that, I have been living my life to the fullest. It did take about a year after my transplant to feel myself. I really just needed a lot of help from my loved ones right after. When I was able to travel, about a year after my transplant, my parents actually took me to Florida, and they were very sweet. They rented a house in Florida. I think it was called not Lido Beach, Siesta Key. They rented a house in Siesta Key, and I rode a bike for the first time in 16 years. I swam in the ocean. I went for walks where I could actually breathe. And I was eating so healthy, and I was just really enjoying life that I said, hey, I want to move here. So less than a year after that, in 1997, I moved to Orlando, Florida.
Oh, that's where I am.
Started. Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm in Claremont, but it's so close. We're just like we're minutes away from the Magic Kingdom.
Well, I used to work for Disney. That was where I got my job when I moved there. But I was more off of Alafaya Trail. I worked for their where we would book things. So I wasn't right on property, but I was always at the parks anyway. But but yeah. So that's in 1998. I met my husband. And then we got married in 2000. We lived in Orlando for 11 years. And I had my son. So after my transplant in 2002, when I had Andrew, the doctors really wouldn't talk to me about having a child. And then I went to them and I said, I want to have a baby. And so they did biopsies with me, and they took me off medicines that you can't be on when you're pregnant, like prednisone. I actually think they took me off my Prograf for a little bit. But I ended up having Andrew, who's 24 years old now, very healthy. And at that time, they told me that he was, I think, one of the 40-something children in the country to be born from a heart transplant patient. So I feel really blessed that I got to have Andrew, because after I had him, I had more precancer, and I was told that I wasn't allowed to have any more children.
Okay. Well,
myself. So that happened all after, my transplant. And we did end up adopting a little boy at birth, and sadly he passed away when he was 2. So, I think with so much stress from that all happening, I actually ended up with a full-blown stroke in 2012. But they got me to the hospital right away. They sucked the clot out, which was in my brain, and all of my feeling came back. And again, just trying to live my life as best I can. The only thing that I've had different is they put a pacemaker defibrillator in me. They said because I was having arrhythmias and I couldn't feel them. And so they put it in there just to make sure that if anything did happen to me, that would be something to help me.
Okay. And that's something they've discussed with me, but haven't done it yet. So still knock on wood, it'll be a while before they do that one to me. But actually, I'm older than you too, so I didn't get my transplant. Actually, I had an experimental surgery in 1968, which wasn't a transplant. Oh, wow. And then, so I'm an old guy, let's just say that. And so being 23 years out and 70 years old, I've got a big old smile on my face.
That is amazing. God bless you, BJ. I'm serious. And anybody that goes through this and does well, just keeps on ticking.
and what I like about, your story with 30 years out and my story, I know I have a lot of listeners out there that listen, especially, with heart transplants, because I do all transplants here on the show, but it seems like the people that are waiting for transplants or heart transplants, especially, listen to a lot of these episodes. And I, like you, I know a gentleman that's on an LVAD machine right now that checks in with me regularly. I check in with him, and he says that this podcast just gives him so much hope for the future. So I'm glad that we can do that with people who are actually waiting for transplants also.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the LVAD is something that has changed people's lives. It's given people life. I'm here because of it. I wouldn't be here without it. So I am very grateful for, that this was like created for myself and anybody else out there who can be on it and stay on it or end up with, the transplant after it. We're very lucky that this has come to be, for sure.
Now we're getting close to, saying goodbye to you. But before we do, I always give everyone anything I missed or something maybe you want to make sure that you talk about before we let you go, because I always want to give everyone that opportunity.
Gosh, I think if I could say anything for someone that's either entering into this world, waiting for this, or if, something that they have a family member, I think family is just as important, because even though I went through it, I saw how much my parents and my loved ones went through everything. For those of us going through it, I say just take every day at a time. I would wake up every single day and be thankful for that day and say to myself, this is a brand new day. I'm starting again. I'm still here. I'm going to keep going, and I'm not going to give up, which is very hard some days. One of the biggest pieces of advice that I got was to do a journal. And because you don't have a lot of control when you're going through these things, you're relying on a lot of people, doctors, nurses, et cetera. And I would write down my bad days, but I would also write down my good days so that when I was having a bad day, I could go back and see all the good days that I was having and that they weren't all bad days, that I had things to look forward to. If anybody did go back and read my journal, they could see that I did have good days, and they would bring those out to me as well. While I waited in the hospital, I would go to church too. I had lots of visitors. And I think people really need that. If they have people that can come visit them, that's a plus to do that. It will brighten your spirits. You'll stop thinking about what you're going through and maybe be distracted at something else that someone else has something, to say. You can play games. Now you can get on the internet. I didn't get to do that when I was going through the transplant, but and even after your transplant, it's one day at a time, and it just keeps getting better and better. And you just have to keep that in mind, that every day is a new day, and there's the possibilities are limitless. I travel all over the world now. I've been to so many different countries. I'm very, very blessed at the things that I've seen that maybe I wouldn't get to see. So I just say never give up, because you never know what can happen.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for sharing your story with us today. And may you and your family have the very best of luck as you live years into the future. Congratulations on that 30 years again. And be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, email us giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Also, follow us on Facebook. And don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, my memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, just isn't a medical story. It's a survival story filled with humor, hope, and heart. It'll make you laugh, maybe even cry. And definitely, it'll make you believe in second chances. Get yours now, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, available on Amazon. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and former radio partner Bill Stevens, BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. And we want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.